Let's move on to our top story, which is, of course, the NPA's decision to withdraw those charges against Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. And we're joined in our studio to get reaction from the ANC's Zizi Kodwa. Appreciate your time, Zizi.
Thanks very much, Sean.
It's been a very busy news day, hasn't it? So firstly, tell us, what's your initial reaction to Shaun Abrahams' decision and announcement today?
The charges against Comrade PG have caused a lot of harm, but also hurt to our economy, but broadly has caused a lot of tensions in society. And as you are aware, where our first reaction was that perhaps to an extent that we have full confidence in our judiciary and we have no doubt about the decision as announced then by the NTPP. But we, not for an inch have we ever doubted the innocence of Comrade PG. That's why he has always enjoyed our unwavering support and confidence as expressed by the ANC on a number of occasions, the cabinet as well as the president, because not just only were we guided by the constitutional principle of presumption of innocence, but the person we know, that we never believed that the allegations that we put against him will stand.
Now, given that you mentioned the implications that initial announcement had, what does Shaun Abrahams have to do now? I mean, does he have to apologize? He says he doesn't have to.
Our view is that there's been a lot, given the tensions that have been caused in society by that announcement. Obviously, we think the appointing authority, among others, must meet with the leadership of the NPA, not just Shaun, because there could be a number of other actors involved, to protect the integrity and independence, because what gave rise, a cause to this tension in society, it has also caused a lot of unnecessarily speculations about the motive and what led to and what not. And I think the appointing authority has got a responsibility not to protect individual, to protect the independence of that institution and its integrity, because it's important for our constitution to make sure that we protect the integrity of the NPA.
Can you protect the integrity of the NPA by him quitting?
The issue is that the immediate meeting of the appointing authority with the leadership of the NPA, among others, must avert and avoid any repeat of what had happened. Given what has happened, I listened to the NTPP. It makes very unfortunate remark that perhaps charging the Minister of Finance is like charging any other board. I don't think appreciates, given the fact that the decision has now been changed, the impact of that earlier decision to our economy, the tension it has caused to society, unnecessarily so. And I think the issue for us could have been handled much better earlier.
So what do you have to say to him about the way he handled the situation?
I'm sure as an individual, in the organization, when such decisions are taken, we always rely on the conscience of individuals to follow their conscience, to do what is necessary and right for them, but also for the country. And I think let's put South Africa first in all whatever we do, not to protect individuals. And I think in this regard, that's why our point of view is that firstly, the first instant to protect the integrity and image of that institution. Perhaps an emergent meeting of the leadership of the NPA with the appointing authority to clarify these issues, because now the issue that the NPA has opened itself up to unnecessary calls, suspension, there will be a question now about its integrity and its independence and so on.
Is it unnecessary though, Zizi, given what we've seen?
And I'm saying the leadership could have circumspect before it announced any decision, the implication of those decisions. And I don't think it must give an impression that it can act willy-nilly without appreciating the impact of its decision. The decisions of the NPA have got a huge impact, not just in the individuals. And I'm sure with this case, having learned what happened in December, you should have appreciated any decision you take around the issues of treasury would have some negative impact. And I think this is the kind of circumspect you would have expected from the leadership of the NPA.
So, should President Jacob Zuma get involved in this now?
Absolutely, as an appointing authority. There's no doubt about it that the President and the Minister concerned will have to meet with the NPA to discuss the implication of this, with a view not to reverse what has happened, but to make sure that we avoid the repeat, but also to make sure that you protect the integrity and independence of that institution against the calls. I mean, there's a chorus of calls now coming from all sorts of directions, legitimately so, given the impact of that decision. This is what leadership needs to be provided at this stage for the sake of that institution.
I mean, obviously the call, some would say, is warranted given the impact and implications this has had on South Africa and the economy. Will the ANC not take such a stance to say that he should resign given the consequences of what was done?
The decision for him to resign, it can't be the decision of the ANC or any other political party. That's why if we are to act within the parameters of the law.
Nevertheless, the ANC is the ruling party of South Africa. If you make a call or say somebody's done something wrong, it's been serious, it's had the implications that we've seen in the country in the past couple of weeks, what you say still carries weight.
We always, we appreciate that, but we always make sure that we make a disclaimer that there's a difference between a governing party and the a party in government and the ruling party outside of government. And we always allow our deployees to do their work. And in this regard, we would like to give an appointing authority an opportunity to deal with an issue. As the ANC, we've expressed ourselves from the beginning, even now, that we think the decision of the NPA as it's now, perhaps I think the NPA should have, in retrospect, should have taken a better decision or different decision from what, because the decision it took, it has caused a lot of harm and attention to society, not only negative impact to the economy. But I think going forward, in order to avoid the repeat, the appointing authority must meet with the NPA because our view is that its independence and integrity is now under jeopardy.
Does he owe the finance minister an apology?
I think, again, following his conscience. If you think that he has done anything wrong, or the leadership, because there are a number of actors as well, if you listen to his presentation, there are a number of actors. If you think he must take responsibility of everybody else underneath or beneath him, he must take that responsibility and be bold enough and say, look, I might have erred. It's important that if he thinks he has done so. If you think he has not done anything wrong, like he has said, he owes nobody any apology.
Now, let's talk about Shaun Abrahams actually meeting President Jacob Zuma at Luthuli House. This was a day before he announced that the charges were going to go ahead, that the NPA was going to pursue these charges. Were people worried about that meeting at Luthuli House? Were people not whispering and saying, why is he here? No, there was never a meeting between the Luthuli House or the ANC and Shaun Abrahams and others. You will recall that the head of state, Mondays is ANC days. And the president, sometimes even before meetings start, he can invite anybody. He doesn't have to ask permission from Gordhan or anybody to meet anybody at Luthuli House. This was purely a government issue. And it had nothing to do with the ANC. As African National Congress, we have never had, on the day set, on the 10th, a meeting with Shaun Abrahams. All right, what about you have two ministers, ANC-appointed ministers, who are now going to court to prevent the state capture report? Are the proper processes being followed? Should they not have gone to Thuli Madonsela or Busisiwe Mkhwebane and say to them, we want right of reply, can we have that? Should they go straight to court? Well, whilst we appreciate the right of individuals, especially people who are implicated in the report, they've got legal recourse, either to interdict like they've done before. Our view as an organization, we're looking forward to this report because this report, in a manner in which issues are raised, quite serious allegations of corporate capture. It does undermine the confidence of our people in the elected leadership of the ANC, but also their own government, the confidence of their own government. If there's a view somewhere that some of us have been captured by corporates, big families and so on, it's an issue that the African National Congress can't close its eyes. It's an issue that it must deal with because it has to do with the character of our national democratic revolution and the character of a democratic state. That can't people elect a democratic state and then that democratic state, for some reason, gets captured by the size of a pocket of certain individuals. So we will look forward, whether it comes tomorrow or any other day, when it comes, it must come with evidence because we're looking forward to that report so that we can act in order to restore people's confidence to the democratic state and their own organization, the ANC. Now, of course, this comes at a time when the ANC has received 101 veterans mailing them, trying to contact you regarding their concern about the party and obviously the charges against Pravin Gordhan, which now falls away. But how do you think that matter was handled, Zizi? We have these senior people who are from the ANC come out publicly and say, we've written to the president, we've written to the senior structures, we've been diverted and directed to lower structures who we don't believe are even good enough to be there. How does the public actually sit by and watch that happen? I think what we must appreciate about the character of the ANC is this plurality of voices which is allowed in the African National Congress. And sometimes it may be construed by those outside of the ANC who don't understand democracy. But of course, there are those who take that internal democracy overstretch. For example, when we continue to say, is it possible for comrades to raise issues in a manner that strengthen and build a strong ANC than to make public comment that bury the ANC?
You won't make, as a member of the ANC in good standing, comments at the end that you know this comment will bury the ANC. However much you feel strong about those comments, that's why we always discourage and also encourage that they must continue to speak internally. Because when you speak internally, you strengthen the African National Congress to self-correct. And I have no doubt that what the ANC is going through, whether from veterans or the former MK combatants, is that the ANC will come out of this process a very strong organization. It is a necessary process for the organization. It is a necessary process of organizational renewal. We're learning a thing or two as an organization. We have gone through this in the past. We think this is a necessary tremor for us to go through, but emerging out of this process will be a better and a strong, wise African National Congress.
I've heard you say that before, but you're forgetting and not taking seriously what these veterans are saying then. Have you not reached out to them after they came out publicly saying that they weren't happy with the attention they received or lack thereof? Have you reached out to them to say, please come back, let's talk about your concerns, so you can learn as the ANC, as you say, from what people are saying?
There's not only just one group of veterans. There's a group of about 65 veterans who have written to the African National Congress. In turn, the African National Congress has written back to those individuals, among others, Frank Chikane and many others on the list, to appreciate, but also to say, what are the things that you suggest that the ANC can do? And many of them responded. And there's another 101 and so on. So we are not just dealing with one sector or one pillar of the African National Congress. The ANC, the multi-class organization, is made out of many sectors. And therefore, as and when you listen to one, but also take into account there are a number of others who may not complain in public, but they are complaining internally in the African National Congress. So in your view, if you think we're not acting to one sector of the organization, it does not mean the collapse of the African National Congress. But we appreciate and engage with whoever engages the African National Congress. What we must also encourage us is that these veterans of the African National Congress, they continue to speak to their own organization, because all of them, they've got a claim in the ANC. They've got ownership and equity in the African National Congress. So we can't discredit them for one reason or another, except to continue to appeal to them. That is it possible that for whatever reason, whether we are unhappy about the response of the leadership of the ANC, continue to knock at the doors of the African National Congress and raise your issues internally, because the more you speak outside of the organization, you create a perception out there that the organization is in disarray, the organization is fighting, is a war in itself, and therefore that impression is not an impression that builds a strong African National Congress.
So what are you doing with these veterans? Have you reached out to them or not?
We have reached out to many veterans, including the 101, like indicated. I'm sure they would have indicated to you that they've approached they might not be happy with the pace, including the demands. We might not meet each demand of a sector, of a group, of individuals and associations that come to Lotuli House, given the nature of some of the issues that are raised, because we have to take into totality a number of issues that are raised. We'll be meeting with everybody. We continue to be an open organization, including these veterans, that they are welcome to come to Lotuli House. I would imagine we may not meet 101, all of them, but if they've got a small team, small committee that continues to come as they did before.
Why not though? These are people who fought during apartheid for the ANC, for freedom, for equality. Why can't you meet 101 of them?
The issue is not about the principle not to meet with them, but it's logistics. You may find 101 people, you may have to transport all of them to the organization. They come from different parts of the country, and that logistic may be difficult, may be a nightmare to get all of them. It's only an organized, because they appear on the list to be very organized. And therefore, if they are organized, there's someone who's coordinating them. You could meet with 4 or 5 of them, where they will then have an opportunity to report back to the organization. But however, if there's an offer from them that they would like to all of them to come to Lotuli House, I'm sure the leadership of the ANC won't have problems with that. We have met thousands and thousands of people before in the numbers who will come to Lotuli House marching, address them, some of them in formal meetings. So I'm not raising a principal issue that we may not meet with them. We don't agree we meet with them, but it's logistically that it may not be possible that we meet 101 people under one roof. But if veterans of the organization feel that each and every one of them wants to say something to the leadership of their own organization, let them be allowed a space to do so.
Do you think they have anything to be worried about?
Of course. I mean, all of us in the organization, we are worried about a number of other issues, including our performance in terms of the setback that we experienced, we're going through on the 3rd of August. Introspection is not just an event. It's a process. And part of that introspection involves a lot of other things. Some of us are still going through a shock. You may find an expression by a number of other leaders that they don't believe what has happened in the organization. And it's a necessary process we must go through of organizational renewal. Our view is that whatever we do as members and former members of the ANC, we must do so at the end to strengthen the ANC, not to bury the organization.
All right, thank you very much for the time and
insight. Thank you.
We appreciate it. That was the ANC spokesperson, Zizi Kodwa. Newsday will continue after the break. Stay with us.